is a massive lie from Dr. Doom and Gloom flip-flop Fauci, because look at this. According to The Intercept, the NIH did, in fact, fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan virology lab. Now, with the newly obtained documents showing that the NIH issued a bat coronavirus grant in 2014 and 2019 to EcoHealth Alliance for a total of $3.1 million, they then subcontracted with the Wuhan lab. In other words, that's where your money went. And around $600,000 was used in part to identify and, yes, alter bat coronaviruses likely to infect humans. That's called gain of function. So it looks like tonight Rand Paul was right all along. Dr. Fauci was not only wrong, but he knew he was wrong. Yes, the U.S., you did fund gain of function at the Wuhan lab. But there's even a bigger question tonight. Did Fauci lie to Congress? Now, here's what he said just back in May. You might remember, and you might be able to decide. We'll let you.
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund
of
Dr. Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research.
And one of the scientists that talked to The Intercept, Dr. Richard Ebright, he tweeted, quote, "The documents make it clear that assertions by the NIH director, Francis Collins, and Dr. Anthony Fauci that the NIH did not support gain-of-function research or potential pandemic pathogen enhancement at the Wuhan lab are untruthful. Fauci needs to be fired immediately and now also investigated for lying to Congress." But I guess that only happens to Republicans and conservatives if they lie to Congress. Then you get dirty guys, tactical gear, pre-dawn raid, and sometimes even fake news CNN cameras. And, of course, all of these explosive findings bolster the evidence supporting the lab leak theory, the theory that Dr. Fauci downplayed even as he was warned as early as January 31st, the same day Donald Trump put his travel ban in effect, the racist and xenophobic and hysterical one in 2020. Meanwhile, Joe Biden and his cabal of failures at the CDC, they continue to spin in a million different directions amid what is a poorly executed virus response strategy. Remember, it was just back in March, Director Walensky definitively stated that, quote, "Our data from the CDC today suggests that vaccinated people do not carry the virus. Don't get sick." Of course, now they've done a complete 180 again, like everything else. They've gotten nothing right. And with the administration failing on every front, Biden is now planning to deliver what they're calling a 6-point plan to address COVID, which is expected to include new mandates and restrictions, and, of course, distract from the fact that he left Americans behind as hostages behind enemy lines with the Taliban controlling their fate. Here with reaction, Senator and also medical doctor Rand Paul. You know, Senator, we knew from the emails that he was first warned that it looked like human manipulation of one of the genomes in the January 31st, 2020 note to Dr. Fauci. We also saw the feverishly written emails back and forth, worried that, in fact, NIH money supported this not only lab, but gain of function, correct?
Yeah, when Dr. Fauci first heard about this on January 31st, the emails were being exchanged all through the night, and I think he was truly worried that this came from the lab. That's when the cover-up began. Immediately the next day, all of a sudden, 4 or 5 virologists were saying it looks like gain of function, it looks like it came out of the lab, and then all of a sudden the next morning things are changing. Most of the rest of the emails have been redacted, so we haven't gotten the full discussion of how he convinced them to change their position. But you have to realize this is the same Dr. Fauci who in 2012 said that even if a pandemic occurred, the research was worth it. He has always been an advocate of gain of function research, and he said even if it were to leak from a lab, infect a scientist, and cause a pandemic. So I find that hard to believe that we still would have someone with such poor judgment who believes that even a pandemic would be worth it, that person is in charge of the research for our government. I find it astounding.
It's beyond astounding, and you were right the whole time, and good for you. My understanding is that even today, because you had a bill that I believe passed unanimously in the Senate, we were talking about it earlier, that in fact would stop funding the Wuhan virology lab. We're still funding that lab today?
Well, that's what these new documents show us, that they have another set of funding that's going to last from 2020 to 2025. But just in August, I passed a unanimous amendment to stop it. But, you know, Dr. Fauci's been asked about this. Senator Kennedy asked him in committee, do you trust the scientists? And he said, that's where the viruses are. We have to, and we have to keep investing there. But what if it leaked? And what if they didn't help us with a leak? And what if it originated, they knew it all along and failed to tell us? Would we still not, would Dr. Fauci not reassess his trust of the Chinese communists and their lab? The Intercept documents also showed that this came out of a Biosafety 3 lab, which is a lab that nobody believes is secure enough to be dealing with these deadly pathogens. And yes, they were taking viruses that were not as transmissible to humans. They were adding S proteins, which is how the virus attaches to the cell, from bat viruses out of a cave, and lo and behold, they created viruses that are not found in nature that were more transmissible than what they started, the very definition of gain of function. And you've never heard one of the journalists that gets to interview Dr. Fauci, you've never heard one of them ask, why is it not gain of function? He just says, oh, it isn't. Why is it not gain of function? The viruses are more transmissible to human. Why is it not gain of function?
Last question. If I were to lie to Congress, I'm pretty certain that I'd be charged with a crime. You've been saying that your belief is, under oath, that Dr. Anthony Fauci lied to Congress. Last time I checked, that's against the law, isn't it, Senator?
It's a felony punishable with 5 years in jail. We've referred it to the Department of Justice. I don't think Biden's Department of Justice will do anything with it. But yes, it is very dangerous to have public officials who we need to have trust in coming and lying to us. But he has lied dozens of times. Usually he tells us that it's for our own good. But yes, he has dissembled, he has obfuscated, there's other nicer words, but he has definitely lied to the American public, and he should be held responsible. But not just that, the judgment that we should continue to fund this lab and that the virus in all likelihood came from the lab, I think is such incredibly poor judgment that he should be immediately removed.
Senator, very revealing. Thank you for being ahead of the curve and telling us the truth. We appreciate it.